Welcome to the SFCC Library's workshop recording on AI and academic dishonesty. In this recording, we're going to be discussing lifelong learning, defining AI and academic dishonesty, ethical use of AI, and practice scenarios. I think it's one thing to have this discussion, but applying them to real-life scenarios you might come across will be the most beneficial for you. Please note that the library has a library guide on artificial intelligence. You can find this video here as well as on our YouTube channel. You might have had an instructor assign this as something for you to complete. Note that if they have accompanied that with the worksheet we've provided at the library, which is called Worksheet, Academic Integrity and AI, there are going to be questions specifically made to engage and interact with you in relationship to this worksheet. So know that when we're referring to various questions or moments to pause and take a second to answer those questions, this is what we're referring to. If you're not doing that, that's fine. Just keep watching the video. If not, this is supposed to be interactive, so there will be moments where I recommend that you pause and work on your worksheet question, and then we'll move on. In fact, one of those moments is right now. So in the corner here, you'll see every question or section will be marked with a WSQ. So right now, we're talking about worksheet question number 1. So before we really dig into this topic, I thought it would be helpful for you to take a moment and reflect on your current thoughts and knowledge. So what are your initial thoughts on AI and academic integrity? Do you think AI can be used ethically in an academic setting? Why or why not? So I always want to make sure that you have time to stop, collaborate, and listen. So whenever you see vanilla ice on the screen, that means it's a good time to pause and fill out that question on the worksheet, and then hit click when you're ready to move on to the next section. All right, hopefully you've had a moment to reflect on your own thoughts as it occurs to you related to AI and education. It's certainly something we can't avoid and will evolve over time, but I'm curious what your thoughts are right now at this moment. Let's move on to our next section, which is lifelong learning. Now, AI is still so new and people have really strong feelings about it. Either it's something that they think is absolutely brilliant and is going to change the way we live in a positive way moving forward. Some people really don't like it and have grave concerns, and all those feelings are valid. However, for you as a student, I want you to think about AI in relation to this video as yourself as a student and a lifelong learner. And I want to provide some context through which we'll be talking about AI and how you can approach it as a student. I think it's always good to have an example for this. And so this is worksheet question number 2. Project Information Literacy is a group of researchers who created a study called Lifelong Learning. And they surveyed 10 U.S. colleges and universities and gathered responses from over 1,600 students. And one of the questions they asked in that survey is, what do you think is the most significant takeaway or benefit that students gain from attending college? All right, ICE is back, so now is your time to pause and answer that on that worksheet if you're filling it out. And honestly, I'm just really curious what you think as well. A lot of times I've asked this question in in-person workshops and have gotten responses like to get a good grade, to get a degree, to move on and be able to get a career or explore an interest because you've succeeded at graduating, which is so true. But I do want to keep in mind the answer that the majority of these college students gave, which is critical thinking. And so you'll see this as a learning outcome in a number of the courses you take throughout your college career. And one of the things that your instructors are hoping you get out of a liberal arts education is the ability to critical think. And so this skill set can be applied to most anything, right? The ability to be able to interact critically with the information and content in front of you, to be able to process and analyze, evaluate, interpret it, and form an opinion, a next step, a next course of action, some sort of conclusion. And so you can see how this skill is pivotal for wherever you might end up moving forward in your career or life as a learner. And I want to apply this to AI because AI is not an opportunity just to shut off your critical thinking. If you're going to use it in a way that's most beneficial to you, your future employer, or your future as a college student, you have to involve critical thought, or you're just mimicking what's been given to you. Its value comes from the critical thought that you apply to it. I want to start on our second session here by making sure that we are all on the same page when it comes to AI and academic dishonesty. We hear about AI a lot, but of course there's going to be different definitions for different types of AI. And when it comes to academic dishonesty, there are going to be probably similar guidelines at each college you might attend. But I want to let you know that this has been such a hot topic that at the start of the school year this year, our administration set to your instructors basically a guideline called Academic Dishonesty FAQ, because we're learning how to address this just like you are. However, what I want to point out to you is that faculty can choose not to award credit for classwork that is the product of cheating, plagiarism, or other dishonesty, or they may issue other consequences. Your faculty member is most likely going to be the person who identifies or has a conversation with you if there's an instance where they think academic honesty has occurred or plagiarism has occurred. So usually the frontline person you're going to see in an instance where this comes up is one-on-one with your instructor. Now, at that point, they might have had something, a list of consequences, or maybe even just a conversation with you. Know that if they feel that it merits further discussion, they can forward it to our student conduct officer, who will then work with you according to the various rules and regulations of the school as to what next steps might be. Now, I want to point out here that it is a law that you cannot be flunked from a course for academic dishonesty or plagiarism in general. However, let's say an assignment that you are working on is worth 30 or 50% of your grade, and it's been determined that you have plagiarized or used AI when you were not supposed to, and therefore have failed that assignment. And then, therefore, just as a natural consequence, you would fail that course. Or let's say that you have used it on multiple assignments, and at that point, that means you have failed because it adds up a percentage of your grade that is no longer passing. So keep that in mind as you think of the various consequences that might be associated. SFCC does have a standard or a code of conduct for students. It can be found off of our website, but I did highlight here the actual section related to definitions of academic dishonesty. You can see that they're grouped by category. We have cheating, participating in dishonesty by others, giving false information, and forgery. There are a few on here I do want to highlight. And while this is related specifically to AI, cheating can take many different forms. So you can see we've highlighted here using help that is not allowed when taking quizzes, tests, or exams, giving tests or academic materials from someone without permission. And in this instance, we might see the use of something like Check. If you haven't heard of it before, it's pretty much an online study help website or service. They can ask you to pay. There are a number of different websites like this, or sometimes with these websites, you're asked to provide a copy of a paper that you wrote, or a copy of your instructor's prompt for a quiz, or a prompt for a paper or a presentation. And there can be a number of issues associated with this. I think when we think of cheating, it's easy to think of copying directly from someone or off of someone's paper, but we live in a technological age where it takes many different forms. So there are a number of issues that can be related to a website like this. One, the copyright or the permissions to use the information, such as the assignment made by your instructor, is actually owned by your instructor in the college. So providing that to someone else online could be a major issue. Also, you would be sharing quiz and test material with someone without permission. Now, this can be a little deceptive, so I understand why students might get confused as to why they can or cannot do this, since they're being encouraged by a company specifically to share this materials. If you ever have a question related to something like this, always check in with your instructor or look at their syllabus. I would say that this also brings us to our, our fourth highlighted item here, submitting the same work more than once without permission. So the hope out of your college career is that you learn to take an idea or many different concepts and build upon them to meet the learning outcome associated with that assignment by that instructor. If it is not built into the assignment that you're working on information or work that you've done before, note that this is listed very specifically under the cheating section, submitting the same work more than once. All right, and let's get to our main one here today. Doing anything an instructor specifically says not to do in the class syllabus or in class discussion, or plagiarism or copying someone else's work without giving them credit. This also includes buying or using other materials, such as term papers, without credit. And so I want to take a moment here and really emphasize that plagiarism isn't just copying someone's work word for word. It is taking someone's idea, so representing in written or oral expression the words, thoughts, or ideas of another person without giving appropriate citation. So that includes things like paraphrasing or giving a summary of someone else's idea without giving credit. So it's not just copying word for word, it's using someone else's ideas. Now let's move on to our definition of artificial intelligence. So referring to the development of computer systems that can perform tasks that typically require human intelligence, such as visual representation, speech recognition, decision making, and then most important of all for our AI and how we're using this different technology is natural language understanding, being able to ask a question naturally. Now, the AI that is most popular at the moment is ChatGPT, which I want to point out is a large language model. It's created by OpenAI, and it is considered generative AI. So in this instance, we're looking at an algorithm that can understand and generate human-like language. Now, I want to point out that ChatGPT is trained on a massive amount of text, including books, articles, websites, and its main purpose is to converse naturally. So it's not necessarily to provide you the most up-to-date information or to be your friend, but to converse. And so that's where we get to that generative being able to respond. Now, I want to take a moment and reflect on your personal use of AI. So this is a time where I want you to consider these questions, and this is for worksheet question number 3. Have you ever used AI before? Some of you have experimented quite extensively with AI, different AI tools. If yes, what tools or platforms have you used? Because there are many out there, and I'm sure there will be many more to come. Have you ever used AI for schoolwork specifically at SFCC? And how comfortable did you feel using AI to complete your coursework? And so Vanilla Ice is back here. It's a great time to pause and to consider those questions and fill out that worksheet. If you're not doing the worksheet with us today, let's move on to our next topic. And that is ethically using AI in your coursework. This is why we're here at this very academic party. And so when we're using AI, it can do so many amazing things, right? It can answer questions, it can find resources for you, it can talk to you, it can write for you. When we're using it to help us complete our coursework, there are a few things to consider. So this is actually a visual that I received from one of the instructors who is friends with Christina here, who has given us permission to use this visual. And what I like about it is that it's a way to conceptualize your use of AI as a student. So at the very top, we have student created. You can see here our first marker is a student icon, and it says, I wrote all the assignment content without consulting AI or the internet. So this is pretty much not using AI at all. Our second marker here, we have both a student icon and an AI bot to represent AI. And the option here says, I consulted AI/internet for ideas, then wrote and submitted the assignment. So we're adding a bit of complexity here. We're starting to actually interact with AI. Our next step here, again, is the icon of a student and the AI bot. And I generated a draft, and AI offered feedback for improvement. The involvement of AI in creating our assignment content is becoming more complicated. So Not only are we getting ideas or creating a draft, we're actually having AI start to give feedback and make changes to our writing. Our fourth step, I prompted AI for multiple responses, used the best parts, edited, and submitted. So here we're seeing that the AI work is coming first in our icon. We're having the AI bot and the student. And that is because we are becoming more involved with AI and what they're contributing to our assignment, the actual writing versus the student doing the editing and making a few changes. Which leads again to our second to last option. AI created a response. I read it, edited it, adjusted it, and submitted it. So the main author here at this moment is AI, not necessarily the student. And then lastly, we have just the AI bot as our icon. I plugged a prompt into AI, copied the response, and submitted it. So of course, the example here that they're using is a writing situation, but I think this is applicable to many different uses of AI. And so I want you to take a moment and reflect. Where do you fall on the scale? So earlier you answered the question, have you used AI or not? Now I want you to think about to what extent are you using AI? So this is our next and fourth question on the worksheet. On a scale from 1 to 6, where 1 means you never use AI for any classwork, and 6 means you've had AI complete the coursework for you and submitted it on your own, where do you most often fall? And I want to point out that this is not supposed to be motivated by judgment of any kind, but I just want you to reflect on your experience so far and how you may need to adjust or change your approach in the future. And I think this gives you some tangible ways to look at what those options might be and how they'll align with what is required from your coursework from your instructor. So, ICE is back. Now is the time again to pause to fill out that worksheet. If not, move on to our next section. And these are just some general guidelines to keep in mind while using or not using AI. Always refer to your class and instructor for what the expectations are for that class. Your class syllabus will likely have the answer. Many faculty are becoming very proactive in letting you know exactly how and how you cannot use AI in your coursework, either in the description of that assignment or in the syllabus, referring to the class as a whole. And this again comes back to part of that critical thinking. Ask yourself what the purpose of the assignment and activity is. Oftentimes, that will let you know what direction you should take. Should you be using AI or not? Your instructor has put a lot of thought into creating these assignments so that they achieve certain learning outcomes. And those learning outcomes are most likely in the service of critical thinking. And so what is the purpose of this assignment? And is going to be, if I'm going to be using AI, does that defeat the purpose of what I'm supposed to be getting out of this? If it doesn't explicitly state you can use AI, then don't. The default assumption is that you do not. If it's not your idea, then you need to cite it. And yes, going back to that definition of plagiarism, if it is not your idea, you need to cite it. And that includes AI-generated content. And there is a way for you to cite AI, which we will discuss in a little bit. As I mentioned before, I think real-life examples are most beneficial for you. And so I have some syllabus statements that were shared with the permission of the instructors. So these are real syllabi statements given by instructors. I think it would be helpful to look at a couple of them so that you get a feel for the type of language and type of things that are permitted and not permitted. Note that each instructor is going to have different policies. And so really it is by assignment, it is by instructor. There is not one policy that is applicable to everything. As I said earlier, some of your instructors are going to embrace AI and some are going to say that no, it's not appropriate for this class or this assignment. Let's take a look at our first AI statement. Now, if you're filling out that worksheet, these links here, the bit.ly links, are provided for you on the worksheet. So right now I'm clicking on AI statement 1. And this is for our communication class. So take a moment and look through this statement as a whole. Here we can see that they're recognizing the use of artificial intelligence and that it can be a valuable tool that can assist students in their journey in learning, but is also critical to maintain academic integrity and the originality of their own written work and voice. For this class, some acceptable use of AI is to brainstorm new ideas, to simplify complex language, or improve writing mechanics and grammar. So here we're not touching on so much the big critical thought or process of a concept, but just helping you with the mechanics and basics. They have some examples here, so you could utilize ChatGPT to generate topic ideas for your speech. You can use Grammarly or other programs with integrated AI, such as Microsoft, to improve mechanics of grammar. However, it is not acceptable to use AI for the substantive assistance. So that means discussion posts, actually writing the content for you, reports, speech scripts, reflective writing assignments. And then they give you some additional information here as well about improving communication overall being the goal of the class. So remember when I told you look at the syllabus, because they're going to tell you what the learning outcomes will be. And this is hopefully what you'll be able to gain as a student with a college degree. Not that you can paste something in a box and then copy paste it back, but engaging with the content and developing those critical thinking skills. Now let's take a moment and go back to our page here and click on AI Statement 2. Now, if you have access to these links, seriously take a moment to sit down with this materials. I'm just going over this information briefly for the sake of this recording. Here we have some more information in another class syllabus, and the class syllabus is pretty much a guide to your course. It's going to tell you the due dates, the reasons why you're being asked to do different assignments. It will describe what needs to be done and when, various policies for the course. So going back to our academic dishonesty definitions, a lot of that had to do with class policy and what your instructor has said or discussed. The syllabus is going to be critical in helping you determine what that is. Now let's see. For this class, you may use tools like AI or Grammarly or citation generators. Now, a lot of times we don't think of citation generators as AI, but it is. So I want you to think about all the different tech you use as a student and question if it's AI or not when you're making a decision to use it or not. However, you do not use AI tools when it comes back to that concept, knowing, thinking, or believing for us. So authorized uses include Microsoft Office, Grammarly, Google Search, which yes, obviously has AI in it. However, they really want you to be aware of data and privacy. Anything that is uploaded to ChatGPT then is going to be used to train it and be part of its knowledge base, because remember we reviewed earlier how ChatGPT works a little bit and how it was made. So that means no uploading other students' information into ChatGPT because you'd be violating their privacy. Here are some unauthorized uses. So we're not allowed to use standalone products like ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, My AI. So here we can see a difference between grammar mechanics versus the thought process. Also, this instructor is noting that if you use AI, it does need to be properly cited, and then it lists other ethical considerations. All right, let's take a look at example number 3. Looks like this is for an English 101 course. Here it's giving a little bit of philosophy at the top, just like our other instructors. So in this course, you're going to be engaging a variety of ideas, text, and writing styles. It gives a note on what generative AI is to help us along with that concept. And then here they give very specific instructions. So AI is being added more and more. You, however, cannot do anything that would affect your voice. Again, you're allowed to use it for general editing, but it cannot rewrite or write a phrase for you that is more than 3 to 5 words. So here we are giving something substantial to tell us anything more than 3 or 5 words is inappropriate, and it should only be used for grammar and mechanics. However, you can use generative AI like ChatGPT or Copilot to help you brainstorm ideas or organize thoughts by building an outline or clarifying language or terminology, as well as creating citations. Again, citation generators are AI. But when we do that, you have to keep in mind, again, it can only assist when it comes to a very limited amount of content, and that the overall purpose of your paper is to convey your idea and your thought process. And then here, just like the other ones, we see that there are actual links to the student code of conduct, which we reviewed together. They might list also other consequences in the syllabus that you look at. Now, if you are doing that worksheet, here we're at worksheet question number 5, there's some questions I want you to consider when you're looking at each one of our syllabus examples here. Did you notice any themes across the 3 examples? How do the examples relate to the academic dishonesty definition that we viewed earlier? I pointed out a few examples there. Did you notice anything else important or missing from the examples we've looked at? And lastly, which policy do you agree with or you think makes the most sense and why? And keep in mind that this is not a critique of the policy itself, but more of a reflection of how you think AI can be used in education and should be used by students, while also being able to develop that critical thinking aspect. So yes, as you're pausing now, let's watch iStance, and hopefully you can fill out that worksheet. Take a couple of minutes. It might take a little bit. There's a number of questions there to fill out. If you're not filling out that worksheet, let's move on to our next section. And so remember, I told you earlier that there is a way to cite information from AI. We do have a library guide that is listed at the top here, and that link is LibGuides, that's spelled LibGuides.SpokaneFalls, all one word, .edu/site/AI citations. Just like you would do with any source that you use in your writing project, presentation, what have you. There is a format for different writing styles. So in MLA here on the left-hand side, you can see a format where it asks you to put in the description of the chat prompt, then include the name of the AI tool, the version, which can affect the type of content that comes out, the company, date, and then link to the URL. In APA, which is going to be used for more of the social sciences, we have similar information, including date, name of tool, language model used. So again, if it's not your idea, it's not your thought, we cite, even when it is coming from a citation generator. Now let's apply this to some real-life practice scenarios. In this example here, we have an individual class assignment. Carrie and Juan decide to collaborate. Carrie compiles research notes. Juan identifies the main findings, and both write down their own original research papers. So this one's just a general one. So is this unethical collaboration, plagiarism, both unethical collaboration and plagiarism, or acceptable collaboration? And I'm going to give you a few seconds here to think this one out and pick an option, and we're going to talk about it together. For this one, I would say it is both unethical collaboration and plagiarism. I know I've repeated it throughout this video, but it's really the point of the video. I want you to think about the purpose of the assignment and what your instructor wants to get out of it. So in this instance, we started by saying that it was an individual class assignment. So while yes, Juan and Carrie did not necessarily end up with the same product, they are working together as if it's a project assignment and not an individual assignment. Carrie has compiled the information, and Juan identifies the main findings. And so you want to ask yourself the very simple question, am I trying to pass off others' work and taking credit for it as my own? And that includes other people's ideas, right? So in this instance, Juan is using the ideas that Carrie has compiled in her research notes, and Carrie is using Juan's ideas by what he has identified in the main findings. And I always like to refer back to scholarly publications, so the scholarly articles you might be asked to read in class. If anyone has participated in a study and it is being published in a scholarly publication, their name is included on that work. So in this instance, I would say that both Carrie and Juan's names should be included on the work that's turned in. However, that is not the purpose of this assignment. It is an individual assignment. And so in this instance, that's why both plagiarism, because we're using other people's idea, and unethical collaboration, since it was supposed to be an individual assignment. Let's move on to our next example, which is more AI specific. So Taylor's teacher has stated that students can use AI tools to brainstorm their own ideas and for spelling, grammar, and basic editing. However, AI tools are not permitted for generating written content or assisting with the critical thinking component of the paper. Taylor is doing an assigned peer review of a classmate's essay and copies part of the classmate's writing into an AI tool to get suggestions for editing and word choice. Taylor then uses the suggestions to revise and make suggestions to the essay, making sure to cite the sections she used the AI tool to create. Is this acceptable use of AI tools, unacceptable use of AI tools, unethical collaboration, plagiarism, or both unacceptable use of AI tools and plagiarism? So in this instance, it is an unacceptable use of AI tools. Students are permitted in the syllabus to use AI tools for brainstorming and editing, which Taylor has done. However, copying another student's work, again, remembering about that classmate's privacy, and when we upload someone else's content to a generative AI tool like ChatGPT, violates that property and their intellectual property rights. And in this instance, the teacher has not specifically said not to, but remember our golden rule, if there's no comment on something, then don't do it. It does not say in their AI syllabus or description of what can be done that you can put another student's information into something like ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot. So if that is not explicitly stated as something that is acceptable, then the answer is no, unless you clarify specifically with that instructor. Now, since this is a peer review assignment, collaboration is intended. So this is not an unethical situation when it comes to plagiarism or collaboration, but really a misuse of the AI tool in general. You reuse paragraphs from a paper you wrote last semester and put it into a new assignment, and you don't cite it because it's your own work. Is this plagiarism? And so this one is a pretty simple yes, it is self-plagiarism, or no, it isn't plagiarism. Hopefully this one felt like an easy one, given our review of the Student Code of Conduct earlier. So yes, it is self-plagiarism. Now, you're not using someone else's idea here. It's your own original idea, but you are reusing your original work. And sometimes this can be a bit of a gray area, except it's been pretty explicit in our Student Code of Conduct that you're not supposed to be submitting the same work over and over again. I also, again, here, I think it's a good time or example to refer back to, again, scholarly publications. So papers written by scholars and researchers. In this instance, if we had a researcher refer back to their own work in a scholarly article, they would still cite that, even if it was an article that they published themselves. And so, again, going back to that thought, what is the purpose of this assignment? In this instance, if you cited yourself, would your instructor say, oh, yes, that's perfectly fine, you followed citation practices? Or would they say, the purpose of this assignment was for you to explore these various skill sets and repeating the work you've already done defeats the purpose of this assignment. I also really want to highlight with each of these situations, you'll notice I keep saying refer back to your instructor and what they've outlined in that syllabus, but also don't be afraid to go to them with questions as well. Now, this leads us to our sixth worksheet question. So for this question, I'm going to leave it open-ended. We'll go ahead and read what's on the screen, but if you're filling out the worksheet, I want you to take some time to seriously consider your response and write it down. You might go over it in class with your instructor, depending on how your instructor wants to review this content, but this is a practice or an exercise for you. So we will not be going over the answer together on this one. Instead, I want you to refer back to those critical thinking skills and come up with a response on your own. So in this instance, Jamie is writing an essay and struggles with articulating ideas clearly. The instructor's syllabus explicitly states the students cannot use generative AI to produce content. However, Jamie notices that Microsoft Copilot is available through their college's Microsoft 365 account and assumes it must be approved for academic work since the school provides access. Jamie uses Copilot to help generate ideas and structure the paper, then expands on the AI-generated outline and submits the final essay as their own work. Is this A, ethical use of available technology, B, a misunderstanding of institutional policy, AI policy. I think that's supposed to say policies. Pretend there's an S at the end there. All right, C, academic dishonesty due to AI dependency, or D, clear case of plagiarism and academic dishonesty. And you guessed it, Vanilla Ice is back. So let's pause and take some time to seriously consider this question and explain in some detail why you've come to this particular conclusion, and maybe even if you agree with it or if you don't agree with it, I would be curious. For those of us moving on to our next section, you'll be happy to know that this is our final section, and so this again is just for those of us filling out that worksheet. We've come a long way watching this video and interacting with this content, and so it's time for a final reflection. How has this worksheet changed your perspective on AI and academic integrity? What key takeaways will you apply to your academic work moving forward? All right, and you're probably happy to know that this is the end of the video. However, the library is always here to assist you. Here I have some library links to help. Our library workshops and all of their content, including activities such as this video, as well as handouts and other helpful information, can be found at our library workshop guide. If you should need help on a research project, you can book a consultation with a librarian on Zoom or in person. If you need more immediate help, please check out our 24/7 chat with a librarian. And then know that we have a number of videos to assist you with your research on our YouTube channel. And so one last shout out to Vanilla Ice to thank him and helping this video come to fruition. And should you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the library. Thank you, and I hope you're having a good day.